It's my privilege now to introduce our keynote speaker this morning, Mark Eves. Mark is about to begin his 4th term in the Maine House of Representatives. Mark is also about to begin his 2nd term as Speaker of the Maine House. Speaker Eves has dedicated his professional career to improving the lives of children, seniors, veterans, and working families. And as a legislative leader in Maine, he has put a spotlight on the challenges and the opportunities the state faces with respect to its rapidly aging population. Working with the Maine Council on Aging, Speaker Eves has built a strong coalition of hundreds of stakeholders to launch a statewide initiative to build aging-friendly communities across Maine. The Maine Aging Initiative is a project that has Maine's business, finance, healthcare, and higher education leaders working with aging advocates to find innovative ways to help older adults age in place and build a stronger workforce. The final thing I'll say about Mark Eves is that he is the real deal. I know Mark well. He's a public leader who is honest, who is smart, who is creative, who is hardworking, and committed to improving the lives of others. So please join me in welcoming Mark Eves, the Speaker of Maine.
And it really is exciting to be here. When we had heard that this might be happening, it really was an exciting opportunity for all of us to get together, 3 states that share a lot in common. Before we kind of jump into the main story and what we've been doing over the last year and a half and some of the successes that we've been able to have and hopefully others will be able to replicate, I did want to just take a moment and thank everybody that did have anything to do with putting this on. I have known Steve for a number of years. He is the real deal as well, as many of you guys know, sincere, honest, compassionate person that cares about individuals, and I hope that we share that together. So it is really great to be here to talk about what's been going on in Maine. It's really great to be here in Portsmouth. I was very excited that it was here. I don't say this very often or very loudly. I live 40 minutes away in North Berwick. We spend quite a bit of time in Portsmouth because we have our best friends live in Portsmouth. My father is a retired chaplain in the United States Air Force stationed at Pease when it was here. My brother and sister live in Greenland, New Hampshire. Some of you might remember, maybe not. It's been closed for a number of years. My brother is Alan Eves. He used to own a nursery and landscaping business called the Garden of Eves on Breakfast Hill Road. Some of you might remember that. And it's just good to be here. I feel very connected and rooted in the Seacoast community, in the Northern New England community. I did not grow up in Maine nor Northern New England. We traveled around the state, lived a lot of different places. But when my wife and myself had an opportunity to choose where we were going to live, we picked Southern Maine, close to my family, and that was intentional as we started thinking about having a family of our own. As Steve said, I'm going into my 4th term in the Maine State Legislature. I served 4 years on the Health and Human Services Committee, the last 2 years as Speaker of the House, and I feel extremely privileged and fortunate to be able to continue in that capacity to work on very important issues like our aging initiative in Maine. So I'll hop right into it and tell you the story over the last 18 months, or even more. Jess Maurer, who is the Executive Director of our AAAs in Maine and the co-chair of the Maine Council on Aging, came to my office with John Hennessy, who I think is here in the back, with AARP, and they came, and as a new speaker, you have an incredible amount of meetings. Usually they last between 15 minutes and a half hour with, I can't even tell you how many different groups I met with. Jess and John were part of that initial meeting. They came, and they came with a plan, and they came with an idea, and they came with some intensity. And they said, we really think that there is an incredible opportunity to solve what we think is one of the major policy imperatives of our time, not just in Maine, but for our country. And Maine being the oldest state in the nation, we really have an opportunity to lead on this issue. So I thought about it, and I didn't immediately, as I often don't, which frustrates some people sometimes. I'd like to think about things and contemplate before we jump in the deep end of the pool. But we gave it some thought in my office, and we said, if we're going to do this, we're really going to commit to it. And we're not going to commit to it for a conference or a day. We're going to commit to it for several years. And we said yes. And the reason we were able to say yes with some confidence is that they did have a plan. They came in and they said, look, it would be really great if we did something different. instead of getting providers and state agencies together to talk about what we need to do together to move Maine forward in this area, we need to have those players in the room. But what we really need to do is have non-traditional players at the table. So through a lot of hard work and outreach, we had business leaders, we had higher education leaders, we had municipal leaders, we had community leaders, we had legislators in the room, some of which are here today. And it's great to see you all from both parties, from the House and the Senate. And it was always intentional for us from the very beginning to make sure that this was a bipartisan effort. No matter the makeup in the legislature, we were going to be able to be successful with this. So that's how it began. We had a series of 4 speakers roundtables to really set the baseline for people, to have a conversation, to really understand the demographics of Maine in our aging population and what those individual groups brought to the table. And they were great conversations. They led to an aging summit that we had several months later. But for me, as I reflect back on starting this initiative, and you never want to start something and then it kind of doesn't go anywhere. That was always my concern on those 4 meetings. But people came back and they kept coming back, and they took time off of their private time from their families and their work to participate in this. So we all agreed that we wanted to stay committed to this. We talked a lot about the economy and the economic impacts to our state. We talked about the fact that we have an aging workforce, and what are we going to do to replace those workers? And people shared, like our Central Maine Power Company, and LL Bean, and Chimbro, a major manufacturer, construction industry in our state. They talked about how 50% of their workforce was going to retire in 10 years, and they're thinking about this. And we talked about, with municipal leaders, the impact on towns as individuals age. So there's a lot of common agreement that this is something we need to stay focused on because of our economy. It's the right thing to do. And there's a lot of synergy. And there are a lot of new players at the table. So I'm happy to report that we were able to successfully do those 4 speakers roundtables. And I think the success of that is because of the diversity of the individuals in that room. And we really tapped into something. We really hit something that didn't just matter to individuals in their work life, but really, obviously, everybody in this room understands that this is personal for everybody. That whether you are a son or daughter taking care of your aging parent, or you are that aging person. My dad turned 91 last weekend. He served in World War II. He's part of the greatest generation, and he has seen his world change, and we certainly have seen it change for him as well. And each and every one of us have a personal story, or we know somebody. So with that combination of this matters to our economy, this matters to our professional lives, this matters to our workforce, we have that all-important element of this matters to me, and it matters to my family and my friends and my neighbors. So from those 4 groups, we had an aging summit, much of which was like today. We had it in Augusta. There were about 400 people that showed up from all over the state. Very lively conversation, and we started to identify some areas that we wanted to work on. And we really wanted to leave that summit with some action plans. That's really where the blueprint came from. So there were 5 areas that we were able to identify. The first was health and well-being, health and wellness. The second is public and private safety. The third was higher education. The fourth was workforce and employment. And the fifth was aging-friendly communities, which has a lot to do with housing and transportation. So we were able to establish those key areas, identify experts in the field, to recruit them to make a commitment for at least a year, if not, we hope longer, to show up every month, to focus in on that subject area and create a plan, both a community-based plan that doesn't take state resources or changes in laws and regulations, and statute changes, and identifying both of those in all 5 areas. Roughly about 15 people per group, co-chairs of each of those 5 groups. And the remarkable thing is, I mean, we're well on our way, and we're well into this. We started this past summer. People continue to stay engaged. people continue to show up. They continue to want to have a good product and really turn something out that matters. So that is something that, again, I think it's critical that the reason we were able to, I think, keep people's attention, and we were going to continue to keep people's attention, is because we made those really solid connections to why does this matter to me and my company, to have high-level execs as well as, I think they're really important people, and a lot of them are in this room. Take time out of their work to come and participate in something like this. They must be getting something out of it. There's some value there. So we were able to have those 5 groups working over the last several months, identifying areas where they think we need to focus. And we are going to be starting our legislative session in January. And I guess it was back in August, I announced my Keep Me Home initiative, which has 3 components in it. And it's the first step to a much broader, much wider legislative agenda where we're going to have a variety of different legislators sponsoring different bills. But the Keep Me Home initiative really focuses on 3 things. The first is affordable senior housing, creating 1,000 units all over the state. There's an incredible wait list. It's a $65 million general obligation bond. The need has been demonstrated. We've toured the state. We've seen what needs to happen, and I really feel good about where we are in the public conversation around that. The second is property tax relief for seniors. I've ran 4 campaigns so far, and for my first door I knocked onto this last campaign, it's something that seniors talk about all the time, and I think it's really real and relevant, and people are getting priced out of their homes that are living on fixed incomes. And we were able to do some work last session on that, of increasing the tax credit for seniors, but we're going to continue to do that. The third, just as equally important, if not even more so, I mean, it's really critical, the direct care workforce. The direct care workforce in Maine is stretched thin, it's underpaid and undervalued. And if it goes away, we are in a world of hurt. So what we're focused on is adequately reimbursing those individuals, having a well-trained workforce, so that when somebody wants to stay in their home and they just need a little extra help, that workforce is there. So we're focused on making sure that we're doing right by seniors and making sure that they live independently in their homes as long as possible, but also doing right by those that are caring for them. So we were able to kick that off several months ago. We've gotten a lot of attention from that, and we feel really good about reflecting over the last year about how we've been able to capture people's attention, really elevate the profile of talking about Maine as the oldest state in the nation, and we really have an opportunity to do something special for Maine, and I think lead the way in the country of developing a model that works. And every state is different, and that's why I'm really excited to be here with all of you to talk about what some of those similarities and differences are, but what we share is our demographics, and that we all are interested in figuring this out, and we have to figure this out. So I look forward to hearing about those ideas from Vermont and New Hampshire. We joke, because we did have folks from Vermont come to the Speakers Roundtables and talk about their experience so far with this issue in Vermont, and we barely nudge Vermont out as the oldest state in the nation, but it's kind of nice to be able to have that speaking point to reflect on. So while we hope we get younger because of the young folks that we're recruiting and keeping, it does provide us, I think, with an opportunity to have a platform to talk about what we're going to do for Mainers. So really that is the story, and I'll give one example of something that was incredible to me, that you never know what's going to happen when you start initiating these things, and there have been so many amazing surprises, and this is one of them. I mean, it's really incredible to me that we are sitting here together, the 3 states, talking about aging issues and how we can solve this policy imperative. But one of those surprises for me was one of the first roundtables we had. The University of Maine came. Carol Kim, she's the Vice President of Research at the University of Maine. She went back to the campus and started talking to people about what we were talking about, the impact on our economy, and from their vantage point as a university, what they could do. What they have done is they have done a campus-wide initiative where no matter what department it is or what degree you're getting, looking through the lens of aging, So the engineers are thinking about that. The social work programs are thinking about that. The architect programs are thinking about that. And what is really exciting is the feedback that they got was overwhelming. People wanted to participate in this, and they wanted to know how that this could become something that the University of Maine could be known for. They had been working on plenty of aging issues, but this really was taking the next step for them to really broaden this out. It has the support from the chancellor down, from the highest level in the university system on down, and that is not by accident. I think that's because of people like Carol coming, showing up, getting excited about what's going on in the group that we were able to establish. And that's just one story of, probably hundreds, quite literally, people that have shared why they are in this initiative with us. And I just feel extremely fortunate to be able to come to things like this, to be a spokesperson for these aging issues, and to have such an incredible team to do it with. The 75 people that participate in those 5 work groups, the hundreds of people that showed up to the Aging Summit, the people that have called my office. This issue has received more calls than any other issue, and just from community members, just from people picking up the phone and reading something in the paper and saying, I really appreciate you focusing on this. I know that there's a lot of advocacy groups here today and people that work on the ground in the trenches with folks. This is an opportunity. I really feel like this is an opportunity we can really drive home. We're often defending programs and defending a lot of things. This is an opportunity to really shine and really drive an agenda. And I guess that's what I want to leave with you guys, is just that spirit of optimism that when you broaden it out, and Steve talked about knocking down the silos and talk to each other, there is so much to be gained. And we have really, I think, gained the respect and credibility from a lot of different groups that traditionally we probably don't talk to all that much. But we have an incredible amount in common, and we have been able to create, I think, something really special that people are really excited about. And we started in a place, and I remember our first meeting and how nervous I was about thinking about our demographics and thinking about how depressing that was, and how are we going to ever try to persuade people to think about this differently. What our goal was, and I think we're a long way off, but we're on that path. What our goal was is for people to think about aging differently, to think about it as an asset, to think about it as an opportunity. And I think we're getting there. We've got a lot of work to do, but I think people are thinking about aging in a much different way, and it's really exciting that we were able to start moving that needle and open people's eyes. Before I open it up to questions and answers, the Economic Forecasting Committee was just in front of our Appropriations Committee yesterday. And everybody pays attention to different things, whether it's the human impact and the personal story, or whether it's our impact on our economy. We have found great success by talking about the impact on our economy. So the Economic Forecasting Committee was in front of Appropriations Committee talking about economic growth in the state. The number one thing that they were talking about was our aging population, our retiring workforce, and our challenge of retaining those workers and recruiting new workers. I mean, that's where we're at right now. We're at a place where in front of the Budget Committee for the state, people are talking about this is something we have to solve if we want to grow our economy. And whether it's our economy or on the municipal level, people are talking about it all the time. And they're coming up to me and they're saying, we hope we can really do something special here. And, we had an election. It didn't go exactly the way I wanted, although we were able to keep the majority in the House, which was pretty amazing given the circumstances. And people have come up to me and said, is this done now? It didn't work out the way you wanted it to, and is this done? And I tell them absolutely not. This creates actually a greater opportunity to do it together, to do what we always intended to do, and that was do it with, on a legislative level with Democrats, with Independents, with Republicans, with the House, with the Senate, with the governor. And we have folks from the administration here today, and I look forward to continuing that partnership because we really do have an incredible opportunity to all do this together. People are talking a lot about the conflict, But I think this is an area that we have incredible common ground on, and I really feel hopeful that we're going to be able to finish the job, do the right thing, and demonstrate, in our state that while we serve in divided government, a pretty severely divided government right now, it's okay, because we can find issues like this of common ground that we're going to be successful on. So I'm very optimistic about our future. I'm very optimistic about this initiative, and I hope that you guys can learn a lot today. I'm going to learn a lot today, and this is just a great opportunity. It really reminds me of where we were a year ago, nearly a year ago at the Aging Summit. I mean, this is so reminiscent of it, and I really hope that you can leave here today with new ideas, with new connections and relationships, and that we can replicate some of the successes that are already going on right now. There's so much going on right now in our state that we're sharing around to different communities, and I know that there are things going on in New Hampshire and Vermont that are incredible, that we will learn from and hopefully replicate. So I just really appreciate the opportunity to be here, to participate, to share a little bit about the Maine story, and I know that we will be in touch throughout this coming year. I'd love to figure out a way to keep these connections. I hope that this does become an annual thing, that we can come back next year and really reflect on a lot of the successes in all three of the states. So with that, I think we have a little bit of time. We have a timekeeper down here, and I haven't got flashed with the cards yet. Anything at all that I spoke about, or any general question that you have about how did you get it up and going, or anything, I'm just going to pause for a moment. And the first question back there.
Hi, I'm Beth Stern. I'm from Central Vermont Council on Aging, and I'm a little embarrassed that there aren't any Vermont legislators here. I think one of the reasons is that there was an education funding meeting in Vermont, and so a lot of legislators are there, which brings me to the issue of how do you, education funding is a big issue in Vermont. I'm sure it's probably a big issue elsewhere, and that's dealing with our children. And yet the population of our children is going down in Vermont, and the population of elders is going up. How can we get our legislators to shift some of the conversation to really deal with the fact that in Vermont, the population of elders is going up? We do a lot of great things in Vermont, a lot of initiatives, and you'll hear about some today, but we haven't been able to really get our legislators to publicly talk about aging as you've done. So I just would like any suggestions you have.
So I mean, one of the things, the contrast between the focus on kids and seniors, one of the great things that we have found is whatever we do, it's usually good for both. And if folks really want to do right by kids and students, and they want to keep folks, they want to keep those young, bright people in Vermont, like we want to keep all of our young, bright people in Maine, we have to create communities where they want to live. And that's one of the groups, the Aging Friendly Community work group is focused on, creating those communities where when you're doing your planning, simple things like curb cuts so that a young mom with a stroller can get around in the same way that an old person with a walker or wheelchair can. But I think, you're really asking about how do you get people's attention to pay attention to care. That's a really hard question to answer. I think you have to make the case that the economic one, you really have to know your audience, I guess, and that's where we do have 5 or 6 or 7 different filters we can run things through and really connect with people, whether it is the business community and talking about the workforce and the economic impact. But I would say go back today and talk to them about some of the successes in New Hampshire and Maine and what the legislature has been able to do. And tell them to call me, or I can call them. We can really reach out.
I know you know our speaker.
I do.
Can you call him later?
I can. I will on the way up. I can do that. I can scold him as I do it and ask him where he was, because we do have Speaker Norelli here, right? We do. So, yes, Rick.
Hi, Rick or Frank Harden from southern New Hampshire. Banana home, one of the many villages, so-called villages around the country. I'm also on the board of the national network, the Village Network. So you mentioned several initiatives, and they sound great, but they're all going to cost money. And so in the way the national network works, the way the individual organizations like mine work, is to depend on volunteers. We got this silver tsunami reaching retirement, they don't get to go back and just sit on the front porch rocking all day long. They've got to help volunteer. And maybe you mentioned tax relief for seniors, which would be awesome. As a senior, I'll say, yeah, I'll take one of those. But hey, you know, maybe you could give me credit for being a volunteer and on those, on those tax credits. Maybe that's a way to keep track of. I don't know how you're going to do it, but we're counting on you. Thanks.
Yeah, excellent. Well, now the pressure's on. Yeah. No, I think you hit on something where we really wanted to maintain the majority of the focus, and I think we've done a pretty good job through establishing these work groups where it's a community-based initiatives that are really going to, I mean, these are the things that don't cost the money. Some models such as yours, the Village to Village, that we've seen some success with. We've got Down East at Home in Maine and some others. But I think you're right. I mean, that's where we started with, first of all, we don't have the resources to do big, new, huge things. I think we do have an opportunity to do some of these things we're talking about because of the priority that people are placing on it. But really, the majority of where we're going to be successful is through groups like yours and others doing volunteer work and also replicating that around the state. So that, I hope, is a major theme throughout today, is that you don't need legislators, although it's sometimes helpful, sometimes harmful. You can really do this on a community-based level, and we can help. What I've found, we can really help. We, being legislators in government, can help by convening. And I think that was the real true value out of those roundtables, out of the summit, out of these work groups. It didn't cost me any money. It cost somebody money to put these things on. But the good thing is the endowments and the philanthropy groups are really paying attention. And they want things like this to happen. So we can say, we have a real interest. Would you help sponsor this? And again, thank you. And I didn't mean to say that in an insulting way. I really thank you for being here and sponsoring things like this, because it's so important. But we do have a role to play with our community leaders and citizens that we can do a lot of things that don't cost any money or a lot of money, but creative ideas like tax incentives for volunteer work and building those volunteer banks so that you can volunteer so it's there for you in the future. I mean, those types of things are really innovative and not all that complicated. They are complicated, but they are doable. And it just often takes leaders in local communities, people coming together, sitting around a table and figuring out how to do this for our community. So I'm glad you bring it up, Rick. Yes?
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I'm Sherry Harden from AARP in New Hampshire. And I think part of the planning process has to include succeeding generations. There are marked differences in each demographic, as we know, and each generation. And what I see as a lifestyle and issues and culture in my age group is remarkably different from my youngest daughter, who is in her early 30s. They don't have the same aspect of life, home ownership, some of those real culture rungs that we have participated in. So I believe there's lots of value, there's lots of information, education, wonderful inventive ideas from our younger generations that need to be included because, as you've said, what happens at my age for older adults will ultimately impact every generation. And we do want the best for that whole subset of individuals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think that's right, and the diversity of ideas and that connection from our youngest to our oldest, I think that's something that we've been focused on as well, of making sure that when we have the opportunity that we are connecting generations to each other and that we're making things intergenerational, that we're getting ideas from the young and the old and figuring out how to do that, because I think what's right today is certainly not going to be right in 50 years, and having that kind of progressively different ideas and experiences will help us plan for the future better. So I think as diverse and as wide ranging manageably that you can have of voices, it's great. And I think that having each generation involved is only creates a richer experience and outcome. And I saw the card just for a few more minutes we have, but I did want to just circle back around really quickly about the group participants, how we started out. And I certainly didn't ever want to, and certainly hope it didn't communicate that today, minimize the importance of the provider community, the importance of state agencies. And I said we started out in a way where we didn't just have those groups at the table talking with one another. We really broadened it out, but it was incredibly important to have them in the room. And it was kind of a fishbowl experience, where it was the roundtables, and then we had provider agencies, from community-based agencies to long-term care nursing home facilities. And one of the things that has been remarkable to me, having served in the legislature now 6 years, there are always turf wars. There are always funding issues. It has not been the case. And I've seen it happen pretty quickly and pretty easily, but everybody's at the table. There's no elbowing out. The nursing homes understand that we need to do better with keeping people living independently in their homes. And that's just been a remarkable experience for me, that my concern and worry about, well, if we do this and we really put a focus on this low end of the continuum, isn't that really going to make people upset or nervous? And that has not been the case, and I think that's been the case because there's been a lot of outreach and polling in and making sure that we're hearing all of those voices. So I just wanted to say that, in addition to getting all the generations in as well. Yes?
Hi, I'm Jana Claire. Is that working? There. I'm Jana Claire. I'm here from the Montpelier Senior Activity Center in Montpelier, Vermont, our capital city. And I'm coming today with the lens of working for a senior activity center where we have really rich and diverse programming and put a lot of energy into developing community partnerships. But I'm also coming with a lens of municipal government, because our senior center is part of our municipal government. And I'm thinking a lot more about making our city and our region more aging friendly, more dementia friendly. And I'm curious what advice you have for helping to make the argument to municipal leaders, council members, and other department heads to use the lens of aging friendly communities in city policy. And so perhaps there are some examples from Maine where specific cities or towns have been really successful with this, and just wondering if you could speak from some examples.
Sure, and I honestly probably am not the best person. There are good people in this room that are town planners, that work on the municipal level, that have had some successes. And I see Peter Morelli here from SACO, that have had some successes. I think part of it is just demonstrating that if you don't do that, I think if you don't really plan for the future and for aging-friendly communities, your community is not going to be prepared for what is coming. And again, the thing that is really great is what's good for somebody pushing a stroller is good for somebody that is walking with a walker. But I think for me, the biggest selling point has been the economy, and preparing states and towns for that, and positioning the state and town for what is coming. I think you just have to have people that believe that and that can see it coming. And you do have to have champions. I mean, you do have to have people on every level that are willing to take it and say this is important enough. But I think you have to make the economic argument, and the town planner that's here from SACO, Peter, he, I think, can speak to how that has really helped the town. Whether it's developing more senior housing or assisted living facilities within the town, and what that does to the tax base, and a variety of other things. There are some examples, some successes around that. But I think whoever gets this right first is going to be in a very good position and really a model for other towns and cities and states. So we have one minute left. Maybe one more question if there is one.
Good morning. I'm Barbara Salvatore, and I represent Engaging New Hampshire, which is a citizen voice for the aging experience. And one of the things that I've learned from Jess is you have worked on the issue of what is aging, and how do people either identify or not identify with aging as they go through the life cycle. So how have you worked within the broader community and context to change what we call in New Hampshire the face of aging?
So I think we are extremely fortunate, and I have not seen her here this morning, but I think she is here, should be here. Yeah, Kayla Burchard from the Portland Press Herald has done a series, I think over the last year, 18 months, called The Challenge of Aging. And it has been a remarkable asset for all of us. One, it has put that face to the name and really told the story of Maine in a very personal way, very personal way. And I think Kelly and the paper has done an incredible service to our state and to our initiative. For us, it is from the beginning talking about how do we elevate the profile for people to care about this. People generally do if you talk to them one-on-one, but on a bigger picture level, how do we get people to be engaged? And I think through getting media outlets to pay attention and to write about it and to care about it, that's great, because that makes our job much easier to continue to push that. And Kelly won a very prestigious award for her reporting on that. And I think that has been incredibly helpful, just elevating the global profile in Maine. And those non-traditional players talking about it too. When you have the business community, agreeing and saying, look, we got to get this right for our workforce and for our economy and prepare our companies for this. That's a new voice, and it's just looking for those new voices. In the university system, the story that I told, the financial institutions, I didn't talk much about the financial institutions, our banks and credit unions. They've been big participants in this. They see firsthand at the counter the financial exploitation that happens with their senior customers. I mean, it's connecting in with all those new voices that maybe aren't new, but we just haven't had that group conversation. And it's just, I think, multiple prongs, having a great ability for the media to elevate this. And for me, and I will end on this because it is the last question, to really genuinely keep politics out of it as much as possible. And I say that sincerely because it's so easy to get sidetracked in the State House or in the legislature, to get sidetracked from that. And that's why it was really important for me from the very beginning, from that first roundtable. We had Republicans and Democrats at that table from the House and the Senate, and Carol McElwee is here today from Caribou. Probably took you 6 hours to get here, literally. She is here because she cares. She is one of my favorite Republicans. I have a lot of favorite Republicans. She is a remarkable person who cares deeply about aging issues, cares deeply about a lot of things. But I think if we can maintain the fact that this is good for all of us, it doesn't matter the outcome of the election. It matters about the relationships we have in the state legislature and in our communities. So I think we will be successful. I'm grateful that Carol and Linda and Drew and Chris and all the legislators that are here today that are going to help make sure that this is successful. We're going to have a bipartisan caucus. Hope Carol will be right there by my side, helping educate our lawmakers to make sure we can do this right and get it right. But it's really been an incredible experience for me. It is one of the most exciting thing that I've worked on in my 6 years in the legislature. I look forward to the next 2 and beyond that. This is a policy imperative we have to get right. It's incredible to be here with our Northern New England neighbors. I'm really excited about next year, what might bring next year, and I look forward to learning from all of you. So thank you very much for the opportunity.